In this video, we're going to have a look at how we can use the extruded molding products in order to draw moldings for manufacture on our cabinets here. And so the difference between draw room components moldings and these draw products extruded moldings is that these extruded moldings are designed for manufacture. So you are going to end up with parts to be manufactured for this. And so in this case, we're going to draw a valance, a vertical valance above this, and so it's going to have a mounting strip and a vertical piece, and then it's going to have a piece of crown on it as well. So we're going to use the extruded crown for that. And so we can use pick points for extrusion, and in the same way that we do an extruded molding from our draw room components, we could go around and pick the 3 points for this molding, but we can also just pick the 2 points for the front and then specify that it has finished ends, and it will include that as a single product. And so I'm just going to pick the front points of my carcass there, and then I'm going to go in and set up the prompts for this product. And so we have options here for left finished end, right finished end, and so that's going to be at the beginning and the end of the points that you've picked. Those are going to have options to return to the wall. And so if those are 90-degree angles that are returning to the wall, you can just pick the points across the front and then use the left and right finished end in order to finish those off. And so that depth of that return is going to be defined by the depth of your product here. And so in this case, that's going to match our cabinet height, and our cabinet height above floor a little bit different than our standard height above floor prompt. It's going to be up here, and that's going to be to the point for this particular one. So here, if we hover over top, we can see that it's the height to the top of the cabinets, and so that's also going to default to our globals for what that is. We have a scribe dimension here, so when we have finished ends, or if we say it's a left scribe, so maybe it's butting up against a wall on the left, and that point that we picked was the start, it would add, in this case, if it was left scribe, it would add dimension to the front pieces in order to account for that. And so it's going to add 1.5 inches wherever there's scribe required, and so that's going to be at a left scribe condition or at the end of a wall return. We have options here for the cabinet overhang, so from the points that I've picked, how far we're going to overhang with that molding. And so in this case, we're going to be 1 1/8 inches, which is our 1/8 inch gap plus our 3/4 door plus 1/4 inch we're going to hang over the front of the door. And so that's going to be our front cabinet overhang. So if we set that to 0, the part would align perfectly with the front of our cabinet carcass there. We have a valance height, and so that's going to be the height of the piece that's running vertically above our cabinets here. And down below, we have the option to specify where our crown is, what our crown height is, and where that's located. And so here we can specify that our crown height is 3 inches there, and then it's going to be 2 inches from the bottom, which means that 2 inches of that 4-inch height of the valance is going to be visible. Our flat crown edge mount width is going to take that crown molding that we're going to create and just specify how much of that is actually touching the valance, and then it's going to machine off the rest to create some flat edges. And so that's just for manufacturing a flat crown, a flat MDF crown option. We can select from our drop down list here and see all of the standard crown molding options that we have as well. On our left and right extensions, these are colored red because they are calculated values. Because we've specified that they are finished ends, it's set by default to hang over the end by 1/4 inch, and so we could override that if we wanted to, but we don't necessarily need to. If we didn't want the crown molding, we could uncheck that and it would remove that. If we wanted to finish the top edge, so if we wanted to use a veneer or a metal material and then put a edge band on the top of it just to clean that edge, we could put a finished top on there. If we're using something that maybe spans across a group of cabinets, maybe we have something over a window or something and we want to extend that across, we have the option to put a full bottom instead of just return pieces on there as well. We can specify what our materials are for our valance and our mounting strip, and then some drawing options and pricing options. So we'll just go ahead and draw that. So here you can see we've got our return strip, our 4-inch vertical valance, and then we're creating a piece of crown to make that item as well. And so that's going to actually manufacture those parts. If we put it out to G-code, we can have those manufactured. There's also an option here for joints, and so you can see this run of cabinets was greater than the 96-inch max amount that I specified. And so if I go into my my moldings here, or my details for this product, we can see that we have some max lengths, and so they're greater. We have 96.5, and that's greater than our maximum length for those materials, and so it's going to automatically put a joint in, and so we can control the location of that joint. So if we wanted to move it over here to line up with the door joint or something like that, we could adjust those joint locations, and so it's going to create all of these parts as a single product, as opposed to creating individual item numbers for each of them. For the extruded valance, we have the same sort of options, and so if we say pick points for extrusion and pick our 2 front points, we have those same types of options. Cabinet height above floor is the height to the bottom of the cabinet in this case. We have options for finishing bottom and top edges and creating our valance. And we have the same type of options for our base molding. So if we want to make a kickboard around the bottom of our cabinets, we can use this extruded base and just pick those 2 points on our leg leveler blocks there, and specify what our depth is, that they have finished ends, and it'll create those items for us as well. And so for a condition like this, we would actually use the pick points here to create those items, and so we can say pick points for extrusion. Same thing, I could go all the way around, but I know that these are squared off to the wall for my finished ends, so I'll just go in and pick those points across and create those items that way. And so that is going to create separate items, but here we go, we can specify that they have finished ends, and we'll just go ahead and say OK. And so for these ones now, you can see when I've created those, I've created the crown, the base, and the valance for those, and so each section is a separate product, and so they have returns on the ends. So we have our right finished end with a return, and there's no left finished end prompts because this is not the first vector. It's only going to show up with these options on the last vector.